Hello and welcome to the National Leadership Briefing. My name is Doug Sharp and I will be your host today. Thank you so much for taking this time today. And of course, I remind you, we're only going to be spending 1 hour together. That's all I ever ask is 1 hour once a month. We touch base here on the National Leadership Briefing and we look for those opportunities where we can advance the things that we believe in into society, culture, politics, and government. And today we have an embarrassment of riches, so as to speak, about the opportunities that we have before us. And thank you so much for being here today because you're developing that all important habit of coming together so that we can capitalize on these opportunities. Well, let's take a quick look at what it is that we're going to be doing here today. Of course, we are going to be starting off with an answer period segment. We get an awful lot of questions here on the National Leadership Briefing, and also we go out into other organizations and we get a lot of questions there, but there are common questions that we hear from time to time that seem to be popping up all over the place. So we're going to bring two of them to you today, two of those questions, and going to provide you the answers during an answer period segment to kick things off. Then we're going to be rolling over the boardroom and we're going to be doing a few things over there, but here's the first one, is we're going to be taking a look at a couple of pieces of legislation that are moving quite quickly through the House of Commons. But we're going to take a look at these from a little bit different perspective by looking at the process that they are in, the legislative process that they are in as they move through the House. We understand here on the National Leadership Briefing, as we come together once a month and touch base, that we have to raise our level of competence and understanding, and that establishes a confidence in us that we understand and know what's going on out there so that we can speak to these issues and speak to these opportunities and respond with confidence when we have the opportunity to do so. So today we're going to do some competence training just by understanding the legislative process a little bit better, and then also then it's going to lead into an opportunity that we're going to have to do something called election accountability. Now, accountability is what we actually serve up to politicians at election time. So we're going to see how the legislative process and the performance of our members of parliament in the House of Commons actually can be tied to kind of an accountability for them at election time. It's going to be quite good to go over that. The second thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to be reviewing some key opportunities that we've had pop up recently for us to take advantage of, where we can speak together with a combined voice, where you and I can combine our influence and we can speak into an opportunity and have greater impact on the outcome of those conversations. And I've got 3 of them for you today. It's pretty exciting. So we're going to do that in the boardroom. Then we're going to come back to the desk here, and it's going to be a big finish today because we're going to do 2 things to close out our time together today. The first thing is that we are introducing you today to the individual. Remember, we're launching the Citizen Action Group Ministries here on the National Leadership Briefing. We've already rolled out the introductory video, which I'm going to be sharing with you again today, and also a pastor's video that shows one pastor and kind of the mental process that they went through to understand the need that they had in their church to have a Citizen Action Group Ministries to kind of help build that infrastructure to respond locally to all the opportunities they had to have influence in their own communities and regionally in their own governments. So we're going to be introducing you today to another individual who is a key person in that process, and that is the Citizen Action Group team leader. And this gentleman's name is Damon, and I know you're going to enjoy meeting him because he's got some great information to share with you that's going to make your Citizen Action Group even more effective at the local level and operating well in your church. So stick around for that. And then finally, I have a big announcement at the end of this, at the briefing today. The very last thing I'm going to share today is an announcement about the all-important next National Leadership Briefing, which is happening on January 1st. And so I'm going to tell you something really big about what we're going to be doing on January 1st as we kick off the next year. So thanks so much for your time today. I look forward to serving you over the course of this next hour. And I promise to get you out of here right on time so you can get back to where you have the greatest influence, where you have the greatest authority, and where you have the greatest anointing and covering, which is where you're called to serve right now in your local communities. So let's kick it off with an answer period segment, and we'll take it from there. Okay, answer period. Let's kick it off with the first question. Now, this is a question that we receive from time to time, but it's pretty regular, so I thought we should address it here on the briefing. As you know, we come together and rally around the 4 pillars on the National Leadership Briefing. The first pillar is that parents have the right to raise their children the way they want. The second one is that those we elect to serve us in civil government must respect and defend our right of belief and freedom of religion. The third one is that the laws and policies of civil government must provide for the safety and security of the citizens, especially the vulnerable that live among us in our communities. And the fourth all-important pillar is that it is inappropriate for civil government to heap debt upon the backs of our children and future generations. Now, as you just heard me read off those 4 pillars, one thing that you've probably noticed if you've been on the briefing from time to time is that I say it the exact same way every time. I actually don't stray from the words at all. I don't change one word up or another one there. It is exactly the same, always delivered the same. Everything we print, everything we produce, everything we share is exactly that same wording. Now, there's a reason for that. First off is that each one of those pillars is specifically designed and came out of the feedback that we got from you, the church. So this is, I don't want to taint what you've already shared with me. And I really believe that we have perfectly encapsulated your views and values and the things that you want to see advanced in the language of the 4 pillars. Now, the second thing is that they're also constructed in a very specific way as to be utilized as we go out and advance the conversations about these issues into society, culture, politics, and government. So as much as you may not see the strategy right on the surface of the 4 pillars, there is very specific language being used so that it is very effective when we use it as a tool in our hands and coming out of our mouths later. The third thing is that this language here is also consistently spoken of without any changes, is because when we come together and speak with one voice, we always want to be able to have it be the same voice. So, because sometimes you probably play that game where you whisper in one ear of somebody and then he whispers in another ear and she whispers it in somebody else. And at the end, the message gets all tainted and twisted around. Well, we're always on the National Leadership Briefing going to speak with the exact same language because we're hoping to duplicate it in your communities, and so that we're all on the same page at the same time, saying exactly the same thing, and we're consistent with our message. So that's the background of the question. But now here, what happens when we get a pretty consistent question out there with reference to the first pillar? Again, what's the first pillar? That parents have the right to raise their children the way they want. We get a lot of questions about this one pillar, and it's specifically the tail end of that first pillar, where it says the way they want. Well, we as Christians, we want to be able to raise our children the way they want. But what happens when we see other parents that are raising their kids the way they want, and it's not appropriate? I mean, you can't take your child as a parent and lock your kid in the basement in a box. Like, that's just not allowed. It's illegal, in fact. So we shouldn't, this is the question we get is, Doug, we shouldn't really say that we want all parents to be able to raise their children the way they want. I mean, that's just not appropriate. And so they question the language of the first pillar. Well, here's my response. This is the answer to the question that we've been receiving. Okay, the reason why the first pillar remains the same, the reason why parents have the right to raise their children the way they want, is because here on the National Leadership Briefing, and what it is that we believe is that parents do have that right to raise their children the way they want. They are, in fact, the caregivers. They are the authority. They are the decision makers about how their children are to be raised. Now, the thing is, you're right. There are some things that parents do to their children which are inappropriate or, in fact, illegal at times, abusive. You could say all that. But what we do is, by maintaining the language and the integrity of our belief that parents have the right to raise their children the way they want, we'll always keep any discussion or conversation about any action or thing that's happening to children out there in other people's families. We'll always keep it focused on the activity itself. In other words, we're isolating the action and leaving and continuing to say that the right to raise your children is not in question. No one is questioning that. We're just questioning that it's inappropriate for you to be doing that, or it's illegal for you to do that. And that is what government should be looking at, is never questioning the right of parents, but always looking at the action or the outcome and things that are happening to kids out there to keep them safe. Let me give you an example. In Alberta, there was a government edict that came down that said it was inappropriate for a Christian school to actually teach children certain passages of the Bible. Okay, so if we keep the conversation specifically focused on the activity of teaching children things out of the Bible, that is the conversation box that should be held in. But what about another case where parents are putting their children on hormones at prepubescent ages so that they actually chemically castrate their kids so that they can achieve some gender outcome that is contrary to the child's biological sex? Well, okay, now we're not questioning the parents' right to raise their children that way, but we do want to have a conversation, a very specific conversation and an in-depth conversation with child services and law enforcement and governments about the appropriateness of placing children on a track like that where they have irreversible changes done to their body before they're at a point of adulthood in their lives. And we can have that conversation, but at no time should we be questioning a parent's right to raise their kids the way they want. So that's the answer to the first question. I hope that's clear to you as to why we keep it that way, but that's the best answer I can give you right now. And I'm open to have conversations about it still in the future, but please know that we never want to question someone's right to raise their kids the way they want. The second question we have is a question that comes up quite a bit from some folks who are the A-type personalities who want to charge ahead. And that is that they say, Doug, why do you always have to go over the four pillars? Like, why do you always have to talk about like every single briefing you bring it up? And it's okay, great. There's some repetition there for sure. Absolutely. Well, I'll answer that question first, but in part with something I just said a short time ago. The consistent delivery of that message and the drilling and training of that message helps us in duplicating that message in our own lives. It helps us understand these things and remember these things better the more I say it. And that's a good reason to actually keep saying it over and over again. The second reason is that try to think of it this way. The first time that you hear the four pillar story and to hear about the four pillars on the National Leadership Briefing, I am delivering that to you. That is something that I want to share with you, somebody who comes on the National Leadership Briefing. The second time you hear it on the National Leadership Briefing, I am doing that for you because I want you to drill and train and be encouraged to hear that message again so that it becomes more top of mind and you have a better understanding of it. But the third time that you hear it delivered on the National Leadership Briefing, think of it this way. I'm not delivering it to you anymore. I'm delivering it to the person who you've invited on the National Leadership Briefing, who's brand new and now wants to hear the message of the four pillars for the first time because they want to know why they're here and who they're hanging around with and the things that we're advancing into culture, society, politics, and government. So think of it that way. If you get a little bit frustrated with the fact that we go over it every briefing, then please know that it's not because I'm trying to drown you out or I'm trying to like bury you in monotony. I'm just really honestly, I just want you to first off get competent yourself in receiving and then communicating the four pillars. But then I also want you to have confidence that when you introduce other people onto the briefing, that they're going to hear the exact same message that you do. And of course, we're here to grow the briefing and grow our influence by growing our numbers every time. So I hope that's helpful. Those are the two questions I want to cover today. Thanks so much for giving me an opportunity to respond. And that is the end of the answer period segment. Let's keep moving forward. These are the things that we believe in. First, that parents have the right to raise their children the way they want. Second, that those we elect to serve us in civil government must respect and defend our right of belief and freedom of religion. Number three, that the laws and policies of civil government must provide for the safety and security of the citizens, especially the vulnerable among us. And number four, that it is inappropriate to heap debt upon the backs of our children and future generations. They came from you. They're your pillars. They're the things that you believe. Okay, so if you'd like to schedule an answer period segment with me online, we can do that by Zoom. Just let me know by sending me an email to president@familyaction.ca. Again, that's president@familyaction.ca. And I'd love to take a half an hour, 45 minutes, and just fire questions at me, and you can share that with your organization or your church family. All right, moving on, we're going to head on over to the boardroom, as I say now. We're going to look at the legislative process. We're going to talk about electoral accountability or justice, however you want to term it. And we're also going to look at some golden opportunities that we have where we can exercise our influence right now. We'll see you in the boardroom. Okay, it's good to be back in the boardroom with you. Thank you so much for your attention here today. Now, we're going to be, like I said, focusing on two pieces of legislation, but not so much getting into the details of the legislation, but more having a look at the legislative process that they are within. Now, of course, before we look at any piece of legislation here on the National Leadership Briefing, we always make sure that we're looking at it through what we call the lens of the four pillars. In other words, as a new piece of legislation pops up in the very beginning, the first thing we want to make sure is that as we look at it, we're saying, okay, is this piece of legislation respecting the authority of parents to raise their children the way they want? And then we looked at through the second pillar lens. Does this respect and will the people defend our right of belief and freedom of religion by passing this piece of legislation? The third one is, does this adequately provide for the protections of vulnerable people within our communities? That's the third pillar. And of course, when it comes to passing legislation or budgets, is this actually a representation of good fiscal policy that is going to help lift that burden of debt off of the backs of our children? So now, if you take a look at any piece of legislation through the lens of the four pillars, it's going to be very obvious to you right away whether that is a piece of legislation that is aligned with your views and values. But I encourage you that if you have any questions about what exactly your values are related to a piece of legislation, ask your pastor, check in with your church leadership, and just go, okay, is this aligned? Is this not aligned? Because you always want to make sure you're on the right side of these conversations that are going on. Well, these two pieces of legislation that we're going to just refer to today, we're not going to get into the deep weeds on this, but is Bill C6, that's the conversion therapy bill. And then the second one is Bill C7, which is the expansion of euthanasia and the removing of safeguards, is the way we're perceiving it, obviously. So as we look at those two pieces of legislation, there are obvious contradictions to the things that we believe with regard to the four pillars. Bill C6, for example, conversion therapy will limit a parent's right and authority to speak to their children about the issues of gender and sexuality. When you take a look at Bill C6 a little bit deeper, it also infringes upon right of belief and freedom of religion. And there are serious questions about whether limiting conversations related to gender and sexuality with individuals actually provides additional protections to them or not. Are they in fact more vulnerable? And are you passing a piece of legislation that's ultimately going to do harm to vulnerable people? There's a question mark around that as well. So there are definitely some questions about that piece of legislation. Bill C7, the euthanasia bill, of course, that is a third pillar bill all the way. Does expanding eligibility on euthanasia right now in Canada, does that further protect, or does that put greater risk on vulnerable citizens that live among us in our communities? So we can see whether it's aligned or not. But that's the four pillar lens that you apply to these two pieces of legislation. But again, we're going to focus on the process because there's opportunities in this process where you can exercise your authority and then ultimately serve up what you might call electoral accountability or electoral justice to those who are considering the legislation in the House of Commons. So in the House of Commons here, and we'll start at the very beginning and before, always before a bill ends up getting landed in the laps of parliamentarians, I can assure you that there are cabals and of people and people sitting in offices somewhere in Canada that are conjuring up all of these ideas about great ideas, how they're going to better society. And that's fantastic that they do that. However, there are also political people that are actually forging weapons in their offices that they want to package as legislative proposals, and they become political weapons that are going to be passed through this process as well. So that's another thing that we're going to talk about at a future time, but we'll just assume that these legislative proposals have already landed in the House of Commons, and it lands at what's called the first reading stage. There's some debate, there's some conversation about the bill, it's received into the House of Commons, and they read the bill and they vote on it and say, okay, we're going to pass that bill into the House of Commons to have further debate and discussion until it arrives at the second stage of the parliamentary process, the legislative process, which is second reading. Now, at second reading, all of the parliamentarians again come together and they vote on the bill, whether they want to advance it for further into the process or whether they want to just get rid of it right away. And the way these parliamentarians vote at each of these stages tells you an awful lot about whether those individuals are aligned with your views and values or whether they're not aligned with your views and values, whether they are working against you or whether they're working for you as an individual citizen in Canada. So this is what we want to monitor, is what happens at first stage, what happens at second stage, and then there's another period of time right after second stage when they vote on it at second stage to move it, keep it moving through the parliamentary process. It goes into something called the committee stage. Now, a bill is written in a very specific way when it enters the process, but it can be amended along the way. The committee stage is a time when they discuss those amendments and they get together with expert witnesses, and they're supposed to take a nice long time doing this and taking serious consideration of possible amendments. But again, these two bills, I can assure you, are not, that's not happening. There is like a rocket sled these things are on and just flying through the House of Commons. So this is at committee stage. Typically there's a nice long period of time when these bills are being considered, and then the amendments are then applied to the legislation, the changes are made, and then it goes to further debate in the House of Commons and it's called third reading vote, and that is when it is finalized in the House of Commons and then moves into the Senate of Canada. Now, the reason why you might say, like, I'm sure there's legislative assistants in Parliament right now that are going, oh my gosh, Doug, you've forgotten all sorts of things. No, I'm giving you the overview of the process, because what I want to draw to your attention is a key moment in time that we have to pay particular attention to. There's obviously, I'm not trying to turn everyone into legislative proposal experts out there, but I do want you to see a moment in time that is key for us whenever we are watching a piece of legislation or participating in a process of a piece of legislation that's going through the House of Commons, especially if it is not something that we support. We want to keep a keen eye on third reading vote. Now, third reading vote, as I mentioned a minute ago, is the point in time where it's gone through second reading, the legislation has gone through as to what it is that they want to do. There's all these amendments that are applied to the piece of legislation. The amendments are made, and then the final vote comes before all the parliamentarians in the House of Commons before it goes into the Senate. Well, what's key about this moment in time is that you could think of this as the final expression of where it is that your parliamentarian's head and heart is in relation to the things that you believe. So on the euthanasia bill, for example, which right off the get-go, I can tell you, that piece of legislation was so seriously flawed at first reading that no amount of amendments or anything that could happen in second reading or committee stage could turn that sow's ear into a silk purse. So that piece of legislation at third reading vote, when parliamentarians vote on that, then you can take a look at the log of their votes and see whether or not they are aligned or whether they're not aligned with your views and values. Now, the reason why I bring that up is that I'm going to be providing you with those votes. I'm actually going to be telling you who it is that supports what, and with their votes, how they voted at third reading. You're going to be getting that information from me, not only on the euthanasia vote and the conversion therapy vote, but I'm also going to remind you of some other votes that they've people, the way they voted in the past, so that you can clearly see whether it is your parliamentarian is actually on side or not on side with the four pillars. Now, why is that important? Because when election time comes around, you have an opportunity to do, well, several things. You can either work as hard as you can to get your parliamentarian reelected, or you can work as hard as you can on getting someone else elected in their place. And or you could do nothing, which I hope you don't. I hope you're activated and engaged in some way. But I mean, you could really actually work both ways. So I want you to have all the information come election time as to how your parliamentarian voted on third reading on the bills that are important to us, that speak to the four pillars and the things that we believe in. So that's what I wanted to share with you on the legislative process today, and make that commitment to you that the third reading vote is so important for us. Now you might say, well, Doug, why don't we wait and see what happens in the Senate? There might be some amendments in the Senate. Well, okay, that's fine, but it's in the hands of the unelected at that point in time. It's not in the hands of the elected. This is the last moment in most considerations of a bill, the last opportunity that someone that you actually had the authority and responsibility to elect actually considers that bill. So we're going to hold those elected representatives accountable, as opposed to what really is an unaccountable Senate. Now, I'm not dissing the Senate. There's a lot of fine people in there doing good work, and they do a lot of considering of bills beyond that. But right now, this third reading vote is going to tell us a lot about where our parliamentarians are at, and whether they are aligned with us, or whether they've got other agendas or other things that they're focused on. Okay, so now that's that. Second thing is, so keep an eye on in the future, I'm going to include those third reading votes for you. Now, I told you I was going to be bringing you some good news today. And of course, that knock knock is the knock knock of opportunity. Opportunity is knocking so much here at the office. I swear, we can't keep up to it. There is so much going on. But let me just review with you some of the golden opportunities, the real good ones that are right here that we can grab a hold of and run with right away. All you got to do is just stay connected to us, and we'll walk you through the whole process. So don't get lost in it. If you think, well, I don't know anything about that, Doug, I don't know how to do any of that, don't worry about it. We're going to show you. And if you walk this road with us and add your influence to ours, we're going to have a major impact in all of these conversations. Okay, first of all, international abortion funding and an organization called Marie Stopes International. Now that's what I've got written on the board here. But if you participated earlier on last month in November, if you participated in a webinar mid-month, we reviewed the conversation that we're having in Canada about where it is that we're spending our money. Fiscal responsibility, looking at it through the lens of the four pillars again. Canada is spending money like crazy out there, money we don't have on things we don't need to impress globalists we don't know. So this is important that we understand where the money's going, especially when the money, some of the money is going to fund abortions overseas. And especially if it's going to organizations like this, which we have discovered is actually very questionably operating criminally in other countries, where they're performing these procedures and abortions in countries where it's not even legal. So that's one of the concerns we had. And so we hosted a webinar, and you can, if this is an issue that is on your heart, abortion or international relations or human rights, and you want to work on a working group that we've established to deal with the money that is coming out of Canada right now and funding organizations like Marie Stopes, then I'm going to include in the post-briefing notes a video of the special briefing we did mid-month. And I'm going to give you an email where you can send an email and you can join our working group on this issue. So gather around folks who feel called to serve in that area. Let's combine our influence, combine our voices, and speak to this issue of international funding for corrupt organizations like Marie Stopes. Okay, the second opportunity that we have, we also discussed between last month's briefing and this month's briefing, and that is we have an opportunity to help save Delta Hospice. Now, Delta Hospice is a hospice house. I won't get into all the details here, but it's a hospice provider that is a palliative care provider, and they have exceptional energy being put into campaigns they have coming against them and trying to force them to become euthanasia providers. So we have an opportunity by joining Delta Hospice's society as individuals. Anyone who's listening to this briefing right now, if you're in Canada, if you're a citizen, if you're a resident in Canada, you can join the society board right now and of Delta Hospice and stand with us. I'm definitely a member of the membership. Sorry, it's not a member of the board. It's a member of the general membership. So we can support the board in their efforts to maintain their palliative care status. And you can add your name to ours by just going online, go to savedeltahospice.com, join the board or join the membership, and you can stand with us in defense of a hospice provider's right to not provide euthanasia within their hospice house. Now, that information I'm also going to provide for you in the post-briefing notes, and it's so easy. It's so easy to do. You can do this one, by the way. Everybody should do this one. Everybody should do this one. There's no question about it. You just go online, you join, you put down $10, and you are automatically a member of the association, and you're going to get a vote on how that hospice house operates. And of course, if we all do it together, we're going to overwhelmingly support the hospice house and give them a fighting chance. So this is Save Delta Hospice. That's the second opportunity. Now, the final opportunity I'll share with you before we go back to the desk is I want to tell you something exciting about a political party here in Canada that's hosting a virtual convention in March. Well, they're hosting a virtual convention in March, and there is an opportunity for us, because it's being held virtually, there's an opportunity for us to get together, all of us from across the nation, and help forge and create the policy that is discussed at that convention and passed and put permanently, well, until the next convention, into the policy book of that party. So this is the CPC, that stands for Conservative Party of Canada Convention, and that convention is coming up, and we are going to be providing all of the details of that opportunity on the conservativeupdate.com website. Now, as a reminder, we own liberalupdate.com, ppcupdate.com, ndpupdate.com, all of those sites, and we want you to come to those sites to get updated information as to how you can have influence in each of the political parties. Now, the only one we have rolled out so far is the conservativeupdate.com, because that's where all of the opportunities have been so far for us to have influence. That, as people of faith in Canada, it's the most welcoming place so far in Canada. Now, we're hoping that we can penetrate all the parties, but right now, this is the party that we've been working with to try and advance our Christian values into that party. So conservativeupdate.com as a priority. You want to be keeping an eye on that website for further information about how you can get engaged in this process of a policy convention virtually from your own living room. And you can work with us and add your voice to ours, and we can all come together like we've been planning on doing to affect great change within politics and government and society and culture. Okay, so these are the opportunities that are before us. Check the post-briefing notes. I'm going to make sure all of this is extremely easy for you to access. It's click and go. You're going to have a great time. It's not going to be difficult, but you definitely want to always be working with us and looking with us for those opportunities where we can work together. Okay, thanks so much for your time here in the boardroom. We're going to head back to the desk because I want to get on to the Citizen Action Group Ministries introduction that I'm going to make of this one individual. It's going to change your life. It's going to change your whole ministry outlook on citizen action groups in your church, and someone who's willing to walk alongside you and your leadership team and your pastors and help you guys have great impact in your local communities. Okay, great. We'll go back to the desk now. In the meantime, just enjoy this video, and we'll talk to you shortly. Bye for now.
The bear has been poked. It's time to wake up from our slumber
and stand together, united as one. One family, one body, one church.
We will not walk past the vulnerable.
Say nothing, do nothing, and turn a blind eye.
We are citizens of a great nation.
We are good Samaritans to our neighbors. You are not alone.
We are the largest unified voice in Canada. So we stand united. This is our rally cry. We are Christ to our nation. This is our battle cry. He shall have dominion from sea to sea and from the river unto the ends of the earth. Righteousness will reign. Justice will prevail. We are united.
Well, here we are on the home stretch of today's National Leadership Briefing. Thanks so much for your attention so far, but the most exciting part of today's briefing is yet to come, and that is, of course, our conversation related to the establishment of Citizen Action Group Ministries within the local church. And we have just the incredible benefit of being able to follow along with people who have already done it and ride their successes and learn from them. And we have been shining a spotlight on one church in particular that has had great influence in their local community and, of course, in their region and in their provincial governments. And all of these things have been happening, and we wanted to share it with you over the course of these last few months. Now, we're moving forward today into the next phase, which is to introduce to you the person who is the Citizen Action Group team leader. Gentleman's name is Damon Khan, and he works at his church helping to support his pastor along with other team members and providing the pastor with the tools that he needs to serve the greater church family as they scan the horizon locally for opportunities where they can have influence. So this Citizen Action Group ministry we first introduced to you in an introduction video, which I'm going to play for you now, and that'll give you a sense as to where it is that this church came from, the evolution of their ministry. And then right after that, I'm going to introduce you to Damon, and we're going to talk about what exactly he's done and his perspective on the ministry. And then he's going to provide you with a really, really important tool so that you can consider establishing the same ministry in your church. Now, I want to just one thing before I start the video. I just want to say again that the Citizen Action Group Ministries are established under the authority of the leadership, under the church pastor or leader in the church. And we encourage anyone who's watching these videos today or participating in the briefing to certainly bring to your pastor's attention and the leadership of your church the existence of this Citizen Action Group ministry training. But please allow your pastor to be the one that directs its implementation and how it is that it operates within the church. This is very important. It's an important part of it because the authority needs to rest with leadership as to exactly what the church engages in. So thank you so much for remembering that as you watch this introductory video, and then I will introduce you right away to Damon Khan, Citizen Action Group ministry leader at his church. Enjoy.
I became aware, just in my prayer time, this thing started to come up about what was happening in the nation, primarily what I'd been reading about what was happening in the education system, the curriculum that was being introduced to grade school children and even preschool children. And I thought, I have to do something, but I'm a pastor. I'm not a politician. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an educator. And I thought, well, what can I do? And so I started to try and do a little bit more research. I was sitting there one morning and I said, God, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know how to do all this. I can't keep up with this. And I felt like the impression that came to me was, there's a remnant of people in your church who have a heart to do this kind of thing. You need to find them. And so I just said, okay, I trust that there's people here that will have this on their heart. So I got up that Sunday morning, just a few days later, and I said, we're gonna have a meeting next Sunday night for those of you who have an interest or a heart for social justice issues. Then I got up again the next Sunday and said, tonight we're having a meeting. And it was totally, I had no idea how many people were gonna show up.
But he knew he couldn't do it alone. Just the sheer size of everything that's happening, whether you're looking at the municipal level, provincial level, federal level, there's just so much going on. So he knew he needed help, but he didn't know what that was gonna look like. So he just gave us a call. I felt a tug on my heart.
You know, our church has 500 people and 20 people came. I said, you guys, I don't have an agenda. What I have is a need.
At the meeting, Pastor Craig just shared what was on his heart in more detail. And he said, more than anything, there's just so much information, so many ways to to create change and get activated. He just needed a team around him that could help gather that information and process it and get it out to the church.
I need people who can find information for me that's pertinent to us right now. I said I need people who can vet that information. I need somebody who can create an action plan or a response so that when I get up on Sunday, I can go, here's the information, here's where we found out, and here's what needs to happen, and you guys, here's how we need to respond.
For me, it's easier just to write things out and to try to figure out how we can approach this problem. So I started writing out a rough plan of what it could look like. And essentially what that looked like was breaking up the work that we're trying to do into 3 pieces. So that's a research piece, an action piece, and a communications piece. And so the research piece really focuses on let's get our hands on this information and make sense of it. And then the second piece, to learn about what's going on, but also to see where they can take action. And then the final piece was communications. And this is where we wanted to bring it all together, because we have the information and then we have the actions. So let's get it all in a succinct message that would make sense to everyone, because we know, like all of us, we're not experts in this, we're just learning as we go. So let's simplify it and make it something that's easy to digest.
From that, we now have a group, about 6 people, myself included as one of them. I'm not always able to attend the meetings, but we came up with a very simple format. We wanted to meet once a month. We would have a special speaker in. Sometimes it was somebody who was a politician, who shared our worldview and could tell us, here's what's happening. Oftentimes we've had somebody like a lawyer in, or a leader from something like Canada Family Action. We had the leader from Parents for Choice in Education. And what we heard from them consistently, and this is where I learned it, they said, we're so delighted that you're doing something because we've been out there by ourselves. We know there's a silent majority, but they are largely uninformed on the issues. And when you're uninformed, you're unengaged. And when you're unengaged, whoever is engaged pretty much carries the day. So we're not conservative or liberal, we're biblical. Who is running for these various offices that most closely resembles our views and values, that most closely resembles as Christians, as Bible-believing Christians, and those are the people that we want to be able to get behind.
So now we have a Citizen Action Group monthly update. So this is an important piece to keep people engaged and to just let them know what's happening at each level of government. First and foremost, I'm there to serve our pastor. The second part is then serving the congregation and getting the information out. The number one piece that was very helpful was setting up a Citizen Action booth. We have our pamphlets and information about what's going on in politics and government. We try to have someone there every Sunday after each of the services. That way they can come and ask questions. If we sent an email, if they have questions about that, or if anything's happening in government and politics, we can help answer questions and build a relationship with the congregation. Because we even have people just wandering up to the booth and saying, oh, what's this all about? I haven't heard about it.
So it's developed into something that our church is being informed. And because of that, our church has begun to become active. We have 1 or 2 people now that are actually on a local riding council. They're involved. I had somebody in my office this week that said to me, I've been praying about this a lot. I feel like I'm supposed to get more involved and I'm actually supposed to run for office. As pastors, we have the responsibility to help our people be salt.
I knew it was the right thing to do to go and vote and share your voice and be heard, but I didn't actually realize that one person could make a difference. I've shifted a lot.
Salt doesn't have an impact until it makes contact. And as Christians, we have to start making contact with our world, with our constituencies, with the nation.
Youth don't necessarily care about politics right now. They care about who's popular, what the music is, what's on TikTok. They don't care about the prime minister. They don't care about the mayor. It doesn't affect them right now. And so if we can create that in our people and help use the Citizen Action Group to say, hey, there's a value for this, and this is how you do that, then when they become voting age, they'll be educated.
The most rewarding part is when I get to see the people that felt that they didn't have the power to make a change, and we said, no, we live in a democracy, this is a great country, and we have an opportunity to speak out for what we believe in and make it an even better place to live.
And I'm not a politician. I'm a pastor, so I don't try and be a politician. because it's not my lane. But there are people in my church who have a real heart for that, and they have a heart for social justice and for one of the things that you've mentioned. And so they're training themselves and becoming, I don't know if you'd call us experts, but at least we're informed and engaged. So it's definitely easier for me because I'm not trying to change who I am. What God was able to do was to create something that empowered our people without me having to change and become something else.
Well, thanks so much for joining us, Damon. It is good to see you online. And wow, great video, great story, such success. Congratulations to you and your Citizen Action group at the church. You have not only set the standard kind of thing out there, but you've done a lot of great work over that, of course, the last couple of years here. So I'm happy to introduce you to everybody. People obviously have seen that video that we just played, but I want to ask you a couple of questions, if I may, just to dig a little bit deeper. I'm also going to, of course, let people have information and share information about your group in the post-briefing notes today, but let's dig in a little bit deeper. In the video there, your pastor had said that he had felt that there was a remnant out there, a remnant within his church family that had a heart for this kind of ministry within the church. And when he presented that to everybody, like, you responded and became the Citizen Action Group lead. So tell me about that. When you heard from Pastor Craig about that, what was it that started gelling up inside you there?
Yeah, I would say, well, first, thank you, Doug, for having me and sharing what we're doing. We're happy to share, and glory to God that we've gotten this far, that we're at this part where we can share. For me, when Pastor Craig gave that call, it spoke to a part, something that's been on my heart for a long time, and that's the social justice piece, the helping people, serving your community, and an opportunity to do it in this political context, which isn't always straightforward. And it isn't always ideal. I know a lot of us don't want to get into the politics of it, but more and more we see this is necessary. And if we don't fill that space, someone else will. So this was an opportunity to contribute to address these challenges that I see from day to day.
Excellent. Well, I'm sure that Pastor Craig is blessed to have you there. As a matter of fact, I know he is, because I've talked to him about you, and not only you, but there's a whole team of people around you that has just evolved. I mean, it's sort of organically come together, and obviously under your great leadership. But I mean, these are people that are also excited to be working on the team with you and felt that same thing in their hearts. Tell me a bit about them.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful thing about this. And when we're working with God, he makes a way and he brings those people. And I think the thing we have in common is a heart for what's happening in our country, and whether it's a specific issue or a variety of issues where we want to see change, right, towards godly values, towards what we're taught in the Bible. And we have a variety of people that have stepped forward and played critical roles. I couldn't do it without our leadership team. And so on our team, we have accountants and people that are retired, people that are in engineering and retail and all kinds of areas, but we all have that common tug on our hearts. And this is something that means something to us, and that we really want to, that also connects us to what's on our pastor's heart too, to really make this change and do what we can.
Well, and that's something that's so great about what you and Pastor Craig have been sharing over the course of this last couple of years is that the remnant that he believed was there in his church, I actually see in all the churches I visit. I mean, when I go out, I mean, there are people that really have a heart for others, and they can see the connection between the decisions of civil government and the impact it has on the lives of people. And you even said in the video at the very end there, you said one of the most rewarding things about what you're doing is that you're looking into the eyes. How did you put that? You're looking in the eyes of people and seeing that they have an impact. That's got to be exciting for you.
Yeah, it's incredible because, a lot of it is, reading emails, getting up to date, drafting information and trying to make it easy to understand. And there will be some work or a fair amount of work in that. But then once you're done doing the nuts and bolts of it, and you get to share with people and you get to hear their stories and hear how decisions in government have affected them, positive or negative, and just to help them know that they can make a difference. And that we are positioned, right? And God has positioned us to make a difference and to speak out, and not just to accept what's been given, but to hope for more and to build towards more in our city, in our province, and in our country.
Oh, that's fantastic. Damon, now you said that you wanted to keep it simple in the video and in easily digestible pieces. And I understand what you've done is you've actually prepared a kind of a getting started right citizen action group email that you can share with any pastor that that has an interest in establishing a citizen action group in their church. Now, is that something that you can share with me, and I can include it as part of the briefing notes as well? Is that something I can actually include? But also, if a pastor contacted you through your email address, would you be able to send something out directly to them?
For sure, yeah. Like we said, we want to share, and we've had that opportunity where pastors have come out to our pastor, and even our pastor recently was in an event, and about 20 people came up and asked him, "How do I start this?" So we prepared a package. It's nice and succinct, pretty. Didn't get overly complicated with it. So we lay out how to start, how to have that first meeting, and start pulling those people in your church and putting them together to form the group. And then the first couple steps with a few documents attached. And we're happy to share. And please feel free to share my email as we do what we can to plant the seed for these, because we know that in our
Tell me what's your email right now, Damon. Just lay it out right now for me.
Yeah, so my email is damoncan@gmail.com.
So it's DAYMONDKAHN at gmail.com.
Actually, it's DAYMONDKHAN.
KHAN. Okay,
Yeah.
KHAN. Okay, thanks for correcting me there. Got to get that right. Okay, but what we'll do is we'll include that in the post-briefing notes as well and make sure that it's right. Well, I tell you, I'm excited to share this, because not everybody knows this, but I do all too well, is I've been tracking with your citizen action group now for quite a while, and you guys are getting something done. So for you to take something that works and make it duplicatable and manageable and usable in the hands of not only a pastor and those in the church that are the remnant that has this on their hearts to serve in, is just so valuable, Damon. I thank you so much, and everyone at the church, for what you've done.
Thank you. Yeah, we have a great team, and we're just happy to help and to play our part in, what we hope is a larger movement across the country.
Okay, well, thanks so much. Now I'm going to be sharing then the introductory video in the post notes today. That's the introductory video with Pastor Craig, which is, by the way, this is, if you're someone who's a pastor, obviously you can dive right in. But if your pastor has not seen this material and you're on the briefing today or watching this video, then make sure you send or share that introductory video with the pastor first. Then there is the pastor's video. And then we're also going to be sharing, I've got something special for everyone today. Damon, I've got a special 7-minute video of you talking about your vision that we're going to be sharing with everybody else as well, along with that all-important nuts and bolts email that you're talking about, where you're going to help people get started right. Well, that's a huge amount of information for everybody, but it is the best way to get that citizen action group started, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, that's it. Just take step by step, and what we share looks like a polished product, but we've been doing this for 3 years, and it didn't look like this at the start. So please, just step by step, you'll get there, and you'll make something beautiful and unique for your church.
Keep failing forward. That's what we say on the National Leadership Briefing. Just keep making a mess until we get it right. Well, perfect, Damon. Thanks so much for you joining us today. It's been great connecting with you. And again, thank you so much for your willingness to serve and to share with the experiences that you have and the knowledge you have.
Yeah, thank you, Doug, and thank you, everyone.
Well, bless you, Damon. Bless you and your church family. And thank you so much again for sharing. And now we're moving on to just the final big announcement. I told you I was going to be saving a big announcement at the end about the January 1st National Leadership Briefing. Now, it's January 1st is the next briefing, because that is the first Friday of the month in January, and also the first day of the year. And whenever you start things off brand new, we always believe it's a good idea to put your best foot forward. So we have a special announcement here today that we are going to be on the January 1st National Leadership Briefing. We are going to be bringing you all of the people that are resources and organizations that are resources for you as church family members across the nation that you can call upon to find out more about what's going on out there in the realms of politics and government. and of course, what affects us in society and culture. So we're going to be bringing people on the briefing that have resources and tools and things that you can use within your citizen action group ministries. We're going to be introducing you to people that have knowledge in areas of like constitutional authority, people who have understandings about laws and policies that are being made out there, people who know how to get the most effective citizen action initiative mobilized within your church. And what I'm going to do is bring them on one right after another on the January 1st briefing, and we are going to introduce you to them. They are going to provide you in the post-briefing notes in January with a one-page resource document that you can have as a resource within your church, and you are going to have an archive of all of the greatest minds and people who are getting the things done in these realms in Canada that you can call upon throughout the entire next year. So we're excited to be able to do that for you. It's a fantastic library of information that you're going to have moving forward after January 1st. But you want to know what the best part about it is? It's an opportunity where you and I can once again practice and develop that habit of coming together and combining our voice and speaking to the issues that are facing us as a nation today. It's an opportunity for us to raise up the profile of the things that we believe in, the 4 pillars, and speak with one voice. And of course, it's another opportunity for us just to come together and have a good time. So I'm looking forward to seeing you on that briefing on January 1st. Please don't miss the opportunity for you to invite your friends, your neighbors, your church family members. This is not something that you just receive and then wait for the video to come out after the briefing and then just fan it out to everybody else. Invite them to join us and ask them to come on this road with us, because we have a lot more fun when we walk together, of course, and we also obviously increase our influence as we grow bigger. So we'll see you on the January 1st briefing. In the meantime, though, we will be having the midweek touch points throughout December, because remember, we talked about some opportunities that we have before us right now. So expect in the midweek touch points in December that I'm going to be reminding you about these opportunities and providing you more information on things like speaking to that working group on foreign funding for abortions. We also have Save Delta Hospice, that campaign, and you're going to find, again, more information in the briefing notes about all of these, but we want to be updating you on those throughout December because that's happening right now. And of course, we have this golden opportunity to influence from inside a political party their policy book. So we want to make sure that if we have an opportunity to speak in a party policy, that we are there and present. And we're going to be talking more about that opportunity in the month of December on the midweek touch points as well. So thank you so much for your attention today. This is the end of our time. I appreciate so much your attention. Because this is the last briefing before Christmas, I want to wish you a very Merry Christmas for you and your family. I pray blessing over you. I pray blessing over your family. And of course, I will continue to pray blessing. All of us here to you and our country will continue to pray blessing over us all in the month ahead. God bless you. Have a great day. And thanks again for being here. Bye for now.